Welcome, everyone. My name is Jessica Silva. I'm from Harder & Company, and today is November 8th, 2021, and we are here for our Shafter CSC meeting. I'm joined by my colleagues, Gabi Magaña and Dr. Amy Ramos. If you have any questions regarding tech support, just go ahead and send them a ping and they will be more than happy to help you. With that, I am going to share briefly. I'm going to share the PowerPoints. Yes, seconds. Okay. All right. Before we get started, please mute yourself and make sure your full name and organization are showing as your screen name. To change your screen name, click the top right side of your picture or video. CSC members, you're going to use the following naming convention: CSC, first and last, CSC Jane Doe, R, first and last if you're a resident. All other participants, AD or CARB for air, AD for Air District and CARB for the California Air Resources Board staff. P for the general public. I know that the general public is being invited into the Zoom. So when you do come in, if you're listening to this on the phone, just go ahead and put P. All other orgs, write your organization name. The hosts, so Gabby and Amy and the Air District will actually help update your names as well if you need assistance. Okay, listening to language interpretation in your Zoom controls, click interpretation. It's located at the bottom of the screen. It looks like a little globe. Click the language that you would like to hear. For this meeting, you'll have English and Spanish as your options. To only hear the interpreted language, click mute original audio. If you have questions during the meeting, please use the chat feature and type in your question. Again, if you have questions that are more tech support related, if you can please put that, send that to Gabby or Amy. Let's see. Okay. I think I went the wrong way. Thank you all for your patience. Please stay on mute unless you're speaking or planning to speak. If you are on the phone, you can participate by pressing *6. Also remember that your phone does get muted, so please unmute your physical phone as well. Please raise your blue Zoom hand to ask a question during a presentation Q&A. And if you're on the phone, you use *9 to raise your hand. Residents who are in the stipend program need to stay for 75% of the meeting to be at least 75% of the meeting to be eligible for the stipend. So that means you would need to stay for at least 90 minutes. Okay. These are the agreements that the CSC had prior to us joining to have a productive discussion and respectful dialogue. To help achieve the meeting goals, we're going to focus on solutions, opportunities, and productive dialogue. Let everyone participate. Step up and then step back. Be civil and respectful. It's okay to disagree, but please be respectful, empathetic, and civil. Stay on point and on time. We're asking that you please keep comments brief and to the point. This will allow enough time for everyone to participate. Attack the problem, not the person. Respectfully challenge ideas or outcomes. Never attack the person. Honor every person's humanity and dignity. And then seek common ground. Building consensus and finding shared values will help achieve the best results during our meeting. Okay, and here they are in Spanish. All right, our agenda for today, we have the welcome, annual report review, measure tracker review, standing updates, wrap up next steps, and then public comments. This was also provided to everyone on the Air District webpage prior to the meeting. All right, public comments. Public attendees on Zoom, please raise your blue hand to ask a question or make a comment. Press *9 from your phone or type in the chat. Public attendees can do the AB617@valleyair.org. Please type your questions or comments. And our YouTube is currently down. I believe they're still working on it. But if that comes up, Zong will, or the Air District will make an announcement. Okay.
And Jessica, we have one announcement from Marisela really quickly.
Okay.
Hola, muy buenas tardes y bienvenidos a la reunión de hoy. I think it's Jessica. Can you go ahead and go back to the interpreting slide, please?
Of course.
No más para si en caso de que necesitaran ayuda para entrar al canal de interpretación, aquí en la pantalla puede ver cómo entrar a este canal. Yo creo que no tenemos ningún problema, pero quería repasarlo por el caso de que tengan problemas técnicos. Busque el globo o el mundo hacia abajo que dice Interpretation. Va a seleccionar eso y también va a querer oprimir el botón que dice Spanish o en español. Y también aparte de eso quiere seleccionar el botón o el que dice Mute Original Audio. Eso significa silenciar el audio original. Y en caso de que tenga problemas técnicos y necesita que entrar al teléfono que tenemos aquí en la pantalla, lo puede hacer, pero eso es nomás en caso de que tenga algún problema técnico. El número de teléfono es el 844-867-6169 y el código de acceso es el 6279-853 y tecla o el signo de número. En este momento, ¿alguna persona tiene algún problema técnico o tiene alguna pregunta? Okay, no estoy escuchando nada. Jessica, we can go ahead and proceed. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Marisela. Okay, everyone. And now I'm going to hand it over to Jessica from the Air Districts.
Thank you, Jessica. I appreciate all of you being here once again. The first things first is I want to just make the announcement that we do not have a co-host. No one volunteered to be co-host this meeting, but we are looking for a co-host for our next meeting, or if at any point in the future you feel like you want to help work with us and the facilitator really in their new capacity to sort of even drive what being co-host means. So definitely keep that in mind throughout this meeting. If you think, I think next time I have some great ideas on how we can move some progress forward or some input I would like to provide or some guidance I might have being a member of the CSC, please work with us. You can volunteer to be co-host and we'd be happy to work with you and the facilitators on that. So I want to make that announcement. I also would like to, it's so hard to start this meeting, even though we're going to talk a little bit in detail about it later, without thanking those of you that were a part of yesterday's lawn and garden incentive replacement event that we had. So I just definitely want to give a round of applause for all of the folks that were involved. I'm seeing several of them actually on Annabelle's screen that were several residents that were out there helping us. The Committee for a Better Shafter was out there passing out hot dogs. Several folks helped us make sure that we got a bunch of old dirty gasoline lawn and garden equipment exchanged for new electric equipment. And like I said, we'll have a little bit more update on sort of what the program was, where we're at as we do our measure tracker, but I couldn't start the meeting without thanking those of you and just recognizing it was so great to see faces in person and not via Zoom and on the screen. And so thank you all so much for being there. It really not only made my day, hopefully residents were happy and supported by what we did and what we think. It sounds like there are a lot of people still interested. So we'll talk a little bit more about next steps, but I just wanted to thank you and applaud all of you for the hard work. Finally, today's meeting is a little sort of open. We have a few updates for you. We're going to talk about the sort of commitments that we followed through with, and hopefully everyone sees sort of their comments reflected in a couple of small changes that we made or updates we made to the annual report. I actually don't know, other than any comments or questions you all have, that will take too long. We also have some great updates on a couple of measures in the tracker. And then of course our typical standing updates. So really this is one of those meetings where anything and everything that you have questions on, you have input on, we're definitely here. Hopefully there's someone on the call that can help answer, or if not, we can definitely take down the comment and get the answer back to you all. So I just want to thank you all for being here, and I'll pass it back to Jessica Silva for the rest of the next part of the meeting, which I think is me.
Yes, it's also you.
Jessica,
yes.
Jessica Primes, before we start, we do have a group with Annabelle. We see that there are several residents in the same area, so we want to make sure that everyone gets credit for being here today. So if we could just, if you all could announce yourselves either in the Spanish channel or on the English channel, we'd love to know who all is there. And I can't see them for some reason on my screen now.
I don't. Oh, I
Hola,
see.
Anabel. Y el grupo que están con Anabel, parece que la cámara se apagó, pero si nos pudieran dejar saber quiénes son las personas que están ahí. Hola, Bianca. Si nos podrían dejar saber quiénes son las personas que están allí.
Lo voy a poner en el chat ahorita, so si me dan un minuto, apenas acabo de llegar, so just give me a couple minutes.
Okay, perfecto. We're just going to drop it into the chat. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Bianca.
Thanks all. So as I mentioned kind of at the start, we are here. I'm just going to briefly, as I kind of do, kind of walk through from the website how to find what I'm going to walk through. Hopefully the residents who prefer to speak in Spanish got the packets that has the printed like hard copy version of what I'm going to review. So please follow along. And I'm just going to highlight a couple of the updates based on your feedback that we made. And hopefully just sort of highlight, if you weren't a part of the last meeting, I'm going to take a couple minutes to just sort of remind you what the major updates are in the annual report. So that again, if you want to take it to folks in your community to show them all of what you've been working on the past year, this is a really great report that would help outline all of the efforts that have been made. So I'm sharing my screen right now. I am on our, and maybe I'll just go to the beginning. I am on our Shafter community webpage up here. Hopefully most of you know, but you can change this into Spanish or Hmong if need be, to where everything that I'm about to click on will also be in your preferred language. But again, the document I'm going over is in Spanish, hopefully in your hands if needed. So first, I'm just going to go to our steering committee meetings. This is where you typically find the agenda. It is also where you can find our updated annual report on the CERP implementation actions. You can see, of course, we removed draft, although any final feedback and input that we can squeeze in here, we are so happy to do. The first thing I'm going to show you really quickly is that we heard, and this is actually one of the main actual updates, is that we wanted to sort of show commitments and progress. One of the comments was something that maybe looks like a thermometer or some sort of bar. I'm zooming in a little bit to show sort of what progress we've made overall in the CERP. So all of the funding that's allocated in the CERP is highlighted here. And what we've done so far is highlighted here in this turquoise color. So this is reflective of just adding up in that tracker that we always send out every month, adding up all of the funding that's in there that's been committed so far, meaning that we've worked with the, whether it's steering committee members for certain incentives, or if it's maybe someone who's taking advantage of a maybe an alternative to ag burning, so they're chipping instead of burning agricultural material. All of that that's been funded is reflected here, and any of the expected reductions that funding paid for is reflected here. So the target for the whole CERP is 255 for the district's incentive funding. And right here, 181 is how much we've done so far, which is obviously, as you can see, more than halfway of our commitment. Which is really great news and really great effort. As you can see, and we'll show in the tracker later, a lot of that is because we've done a lot of the high priority item, which was getting low dust nut harvesters. So something that would reduce the dusty emissions from almond harvesting. So a lot of that is PM 2.5 reductions, and that's reflected here. As well as the NOx reductions, we have 1,083 that we target. And so far we've done 388. And that's, we still have what we have to go. And the reason these are different is because some of the measures we've worked on earlier were some that had PM 2.5 as their main emission source. So that example of low dust nut harvesting or even alternatives to ag burn are more PM 2.5. And some of the measures that we still have to go that we'll talk about a little bit later are things like truck traffic, or even NOx reductions, say, come from lawn and garden equipment, although we know it's not quite as bad as some of the heavy duty diesel trucks. So that's one of the main progress metrics that folks were interested in looking at. I'll just really quickly go through some of the sections, if you weren't here the last time, that are new to the annual report that weren't here last year. An outline of sort of what the new facilitation selection looked like. As you can see, we have been in a couple of meetings now with our new facilitator, and that is reflected here. So again, if you want to communicate to your community some of the work you've done, that doesn't just include the CERT measures, it includes all of the meetings that you, and the phone calls you took and the survey you took to help us select a new facilitator. And then of course, all of the community air monitoring to date. One of the things that's new that we just added, and it will be talked about a little bit later, but we actually now have an interactive map of community air monitoring that you can look at in Shafter that's different than that sort of static map that we've shown. So I'm just clicking really quickly to it and just showing you that this is different. This is an update and something that we've reflected in the annual report for you all to hone in on. So I just wanted to provide that update as well. And going back, oh, I always like click away and then it's going to take a second. Uh-oh. I might have to just go backwards from where I just was. So one moment. There we go. Oh, good. It went to right where I was talking. Another update is that we talk about the emissions inventory. And this is something for those of you that like digging into the technical information. One of the things we do every year is we actually have to update the emissions inventory. And so one of the, on the main Shafter page down here under emissions sources, all of the different inventories for the district and the state are listed here. And all of the permitted facilities, we went through and updated the most recent year, which the way that we do inventory right now is 2019, but we will go through an exercise to finalize 2020. But this was just updated, as you can see here, just last month. And that is also a new thing to look at in the annual report. So I just wanted to let you all know that this was available as well. And that's true for NOx, for PM 2.5, for VOCs, and for air toxics. So all of that is updated with the most recent year as of last month. So that's something to look out for if you're interested. Trying to make sure it gets me to go back. And finally, or actually that's mostly it. That's what the main updates were. Of course, within each of these incentives measures, we updated sort of where we're at with the project plans. So you got a preview of this in our draft, but this is actually now that I'm here in it, we do need to update this. Between us publishing this and today, and this will be an update later, this is now an approved project plan. So we will be moving this over here to this bucket. So that will be finalized before we finalize this and submit it to CARB. So that is one new update. And then certainly finally, again, if you hadn't had a chance, one of the things we also do, of course, is provide all of the detail in here. And of course, it's summarized in that graphic I showed earlier, but something that we can propose to put in here that I think was a comment from last time that is not reflected in the draft you just got, but we can certainly add, is this type of metric. It's a tool we've been sort of playing with that I wanted to share with you all. That measure by measure shows you what we've spent and what's remaining for each measure. So maybe a more visual way to track progress, and something that I know Gustavo's been a big advocate for, and I think a lot of you have also commented similar comments. So I just wanted to let you know that this is sort of a proposal that we can move forward with. It might not look exactly like this, but the concept will be the same. not only just in the annual report, of course, but maybe it goes along with the tracker every month that we can send out. So everyone has, again, a more visual way to track progress. So I will stop there. Those are actually all my comments on sort of the updates to the annual report. Again, a lot of the comments we heard were about showing progress a little bit more visually. And again, I just wanted to highlight some of the changes that were made and some of the updates to the website that are also reflected there. So with that, I will answer any questions or take any comments, or even just if we can get reactions from folks on that last little visual tracker I shared as well, that might help us develop an ongoing system. And it looks like we're now live on YouTube. Yay!
Great work, Gabby.
Good job, team.
All right, we have a hand up from Gus.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? Good evening. Gustavo Guida Jr. with Central California Environmental Justice Network. Cool visuals. I like them. One question, I think it's more or less like on like the next steps of the visual of like this, you know, the nearly 7 million that has been spent. And is it appropriate to say 180 tons of pollutants, or like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, so 180, that one graphic that had the summary at the top that had PM and then NOx, is that what you're asking about?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was 188 tons of PM 2.5.
181 tons have been reduced already out of the 255 that we're trying to go for.
Okay, cool. Right on. And then this will be sent out to all the residents, a hard copy for the ones that receive hard copies?
I believe if they haven't, I believe, Heather, everyone received a hard copy. The residents that so far, cool. It's because we were going to review this with everyone. Right. We sent it out to our primary Spanish speakers. But once we kind of get final, like if we're buttoned up and we're good to go, we will like make them all pretty, and then everyone can get the very, very final version.
Exactly.
Perfect. Okay, cool. I'm just wondering, like, this is amazing. And at one point, do we like? There was a image that you had that had green bar graphs. There was like a dark indication and a lighter one. Dark meaning that's what we have accomplished
yeah. So let me share with you. This is exactly, and this is sort of what it could look. This is a draft, something we're playing with as a tool. It might not be the actual tool for it. We are playing with a different tool that would be published and look something like this, where yes, green is spent and you can even hover over it. It might, again, this is sort of a pilot version. But yes, dark green is spent, light green, and even the colors I think could change, but okay. Light green is remaining, and something that can make it a little easier for folks to understand. Yeah, that's exactly right. And then folks can sort of see, okay, cool, these are what we've done, but look at how much we still have to work on, how do we make sure we prioritize that? Right.
Okay. So this is specifically tied to dollar amounts, right?
Yes, this is exactly. Dollar amounts are down here. Yes, that's a great point. Exactly. And we could do something similar for emissions too.
Yes, that was my next question. Awesome. The next question was like, at what point can we visually see these are the potential emissions that could be reduced and these are the actual emissions that have been reduced? I mean, I get it that we have the PM and the NOx, but
measure by measure, you're saying.
Right, exactly, yes.
Yep, 100%. We totally could. It's actually something not only we're thinking kind of beyond the annual report at this point, and we're thinking it's a tool we want to develop, that monthly tracker that we publish that we'll go over. It'll be like monthly, you'll see exactly that, Gustavo. Perfect.
Right on, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
We have a question from Melissa in the chat. Are there grants for planting trees in Shafter?
There are. We're going to actually, right after we're done here, we're going to transition to some specific updates. And one of them is about urban greening. So planting trees in Shafter, that's exactly right. So maybe when we get there, I'll have Brian Dodds, who's our incentives program manager get to that question, Melissa. So we'll kind of put a pause on that, but yes, we'll answer that even more detail.
And there's one question from the Annabelle Marquez group. How is the Air District measuring the emission reduction that is happening with all the incentives that have already been used?
Great question. I don't know, Brian, do you have, I was about to start, but Brian is like the incentives. He knows how all of this is done, but yes, we have a very kind of robust way of measuring that, and I'll have Brian explain it.
Yeah, so it's a very good question. And typically the way we achieve emission reductions through our grant programs is you have an old piece of equipment that is polluting at this level. Let's say it's polluting at 10 pounds per year, just as an example. And then you have, let's say, a gas, you have a gas powered lawnmower, it's 10 pounds per year. Now we just took that out of service, and you have a zero emission battery powered lawnmower that is at 0 pounds per year. And so we measure that difference basically between what the old equipment was doing and what the new equipment was doing. And that's how we calculate the emission reductions that's associated with those incentive projects. I hope that answers the question. It's a kind of a, you know, we could spend a lot of time on that, but that's the sort of the high level explanation for how we do that.
And for each type of equipment, Brian, there's sort of like, there's a lot of research that goes into understanding what those emissions are for the old and new equipment. So it's sort of like kind of a baseline that like everyone sort of agrees on for what those emissions are based on what we know about the old and new equipment.
And I'm not sure who's typing the questions for Annabelle Marquez, but I do see that you have 2 more comments in the chat. I was wondering if you wanted to unmute and give your comments.
I think, oh yeah, go ahead. I'll let them unmute. I think I know what the question is though.
Una pregunta que tenía era porque están diciendo de los números altos de incentivos, pero queríamos comparar con lo de que está saliendo de la industria. ¿Cuánto es de industria, de los contaminantes que es de la industria? No que algo local, que algo que viene siendo de lo reciente. Lo acabo de poner en el chat, pero hacer la comparación de esas dos maneras, porque él está hablando sobre el programa que acaba de pasar ayer. No se ha abierto ni las cajas para dar una comparación. Queremos algo local, porque así como miran lo que se han dado a la industria fueron millones de dólares a comparado con lo que se ha dado a la comunidad. Queríamos saber detalladamente y que lo manden en reporte para poderlo poner yo sé que va a venir en el reporte anual para el estado, y queríamos saber los números concretos. No queremos un estimado ni nada, queríamos algo concreto porque ese dinero ya se dio a la industria.
I know you were talking about incentives, but we would like to see a comparison between the industry and all the local pollutants, because I know he's talking about all those numbers and everything, but we want something more concrete. I know that they spend a lot of money already, millions of dollars. So we would like to see something that is more for the community, something in detail. We would like to see the annual report, but not in general, something more for the community. Thank you.
So Bianca, can I clarify? So I was just talking, when we were talking with Gustavo, we were talking about measure by measure, going through what the emissions reductions were rather than high level, kind of that green chart I just showed, but instead of money, it's actual actual tons that we're targeting compared to tons that we've achieved. So I think that's the detail that we're asking about the incentives. I'm just wondering if you had more to add to that. Is that kind of what you're looking for?
¿Cuándo tienen esta información? Porque si nos dicen, más para adelante, no, lo queremos una fecha total. Queremos we need a concrete date when this report is going to come out, so we could compare to what the numbers are right now. Can you give us an estimate when you could send that report out? That's
the report is everything that I'm talking about has been in the tracker. So all of those numbers are in the tracker. I was just talking about a summarized visual that would visualize those numbers, but those numbers are in the tracker right now. So we just summarized them in that visual, but in the tracker, and maybe that's probably a good reminder. I can just we can bleed a little bit into the next one and maybe that's helpful. So I'm going to go here. This is the shafter. The tracker actually by measure has what we've achieved so far in PM 2.5 and in NOx and VOCs if applicable, if it's probably one of the targets. So you could see this for actually every single measure. This is what we've actually achieved with the funding that we've put in to date. If that helps answer that question. So the report comes out monthly. So that's something we update every single month. What I'm thinking of though, is I think to get to your point, Bianca, and to what Gustavo was just mentioning, we will add next month a visual tracker to the detailed tracker. So you can at a glance see it rather than seeing it just on a measure by measure level and scrolling through that. But yeah, that's something we have updated every month, and we definitely want to update it moving forward. And hopefully that helps.
Jess, there's a follow-up question from Bianca. Is it compared with what is it stated or an estimate?
Is it compared with what is stated? So it's it is as detailed. That is our report, and it will be this is our report to CARB, who holds us sort of accountable for all of these emissions reductions reporting of like what. I mean, of course, it's all an estimate, right? Anytime we do all of this, but that is our actual report of what is actually going to be reduced based on everything we know about the baseline, so the old equipment and the new equipment. So it's not, I don't know, when you say what compared with what is stated, I think you're saying, is it compared with maybe what our target was in the SERP? Is that what you're asking? Compared to what we actually did? Is that what you're thinking?
No, lo estoy diciendo porque no tiene fecha, como aquí también estamos mirando los papeles de cuándo a cuándo se está haciendo el resultado de cada reporte, como si estás diciendo que si se dieron esta máquina en enero, ahorita esta es la reducción que se hizo, o estás comparando desde que se empezó lo que viene siendo el 617, ¿cuál es la comparación? Porque nomás me estás dando un número, no me estás diciendo fechas. Eso es lo que estamos pidiendo ahorita.
So it doesn't have a date. We're looking at the paper right now, and it doesn't say when to when, the results. So I don't know what you're giving me. You're giving me when they gave the machine in January, or since the 617. What's the comparison? What are the numbers that you're giving me?
Great question. This is since the SERP was adopted, in the upper left-hand corner of that paper, at least it's on this visual that I'm showing on the thing. So I think it's on the printed version. It says updated November 1st, 2021. So just 8 days ago. It's from the inception of the SERP until 8 days ago. This is how much we funded and how many reductions we expect from that funding. But I think what I'm hearing, and let me...
Sorry. También quería decirles que depende también la temporada, como si se hizo los incentivos después de la harvesting season, ese es un problema, porque no están capturando lo que es detalladamente lo que está pasando aquí. Por eso me da pendiente que no, porque no lo hacen desde que se dio ese dinero. Vamos a poner, si se dio el dinero para esta maquinaria, ¿cuánto hizo la reducción de emisiones? Porque si me estás dando desde que empezó el 617, puede haber un cambio radical. El ranchero puede cambiar el fruto, puede cambiar que no vaya a ser no va a ser harvest esa season, something like that. Por eso queríamos saber si se dio el dinero en enero, desde enero hasta ahorita, ¿cuánto es la reducción que se está haciendo?
Yes, we want to know if this is after each season, or you're doing it after the harvest, because if you're just doing it like that, that is a problem because it's no detail. We know that if the money was given for certain machines, we want to know, because if you started since once 7 started, that's something radical. So we really need to know, because the ranchers can change the fruit and things can change. So we really need to know if they started since the money was given.
I think maybe this is definitely, and maybe Brian and I could give you, it sounds like Bianca, you and maybe Annabelle and others, maybe we have a call offline so I can sort of understand exactly what we're looking for. It sounds like you're specifically, at least your question right now is specific to harvesting equipment. And I think we might better sort of understand and maybe dig in a little bit so we can explain sort of what, kind of how the funding works. So when I say since the beginning, since we adopted the SERP, that's how many we've contracted with, but I think you're talking about, okay, so when are they operating the equipment? When is it going to start working, and kind of for which season? So I think maybe talking a little bit, getting those questions from you all and having that discussion, and then we can update the committee on that discussion at the next step. Okay, awesome, thank you. We will follow up.
All right, we have a few more minutes for this agenda item. Does anyone else have any questions? Okay, I don't see any hands up. Team, do you see any hands up that I may be missing? Okay, I'm seeing no. So with that, we are going to move on to the measure tracker review. And I believe we are starting with lawn and garden with Brian Dodds. Is that correct, Jess?
I was sort of thinking we might finish with lawn and garden, but I do think Brian will do the other updates for some of the other measures.
Okay.
I did just show the tracker, so if you guys don't mind, I'll maybe have Brian give some updates to some measures that were asked about at the last meeting. Then we'll kind of do a lawn and garden, and then we'll open to any other measure tracker questions.
Thank you.
Perfect. All right. Good evening, everybody. A couple of priority project plans or incentive options that we wanted to provide updates on. We recently received approval from CARB for the residential wood burning replacement program that we have. And so that's our burn cleaner program. And so now we can use $617 on those types of projects. If you would look at the tracker that we have at this point, it's at 0. We weren't able to fund any projects until about a week ago. So I'd imagine when we do this update in December, if you look at this tracker in December, we'll have some good progress there. We'll be able to fund projects in the Shafter community under the burn cleaner umbrella. And what that program is it provides residents the opportunity and funding to replace a wood burning device. Say you have an open hearth fireplace in your home, or you've got a non-certified pellet insert or something along those lines, and you want to replace it with something cleaner, well, you can get up to $3,000 to replace that wood burning device with a natural gas device, which is much cleaner and will provide benefits to the community and residents by not burning wood. And so that option is out there. Now we have a number of retailers in the area, particularly in Bakersfield, who are Spanish speaking, that can help out residents participate in the program, apply for the program. A number of our retailers for low income participants will even do what we call like an instant reduction. And so they take the incentive off of the cost of the unit. And so residents might be able to participate without spending, the $3,000 out of pocket. Essentially, the retailer will cover that expense, and then we reimburse them directly once that project is completed. So there's a lot of opportunities for residents to participate. It's a great program. We can help you out in any way along the way if you have questions about how to participate or where to get started. But really, this will be a good option for residents of Shafter to take advantage of these funds that we haven't been able to utilize until now in order to until we had that project plan approved. I'm trying to monitor the chat and talk at the same time, and I'm having trouble doing that. There was a question about an event for the residents to fill out the applications. We have staff available all day, every day that can help fill out applications. Really, probably my best recommendation would be, in order to participate, if residents are interested, is to visit a local retailer and see what options are out there in terms of replacement devices. They're well-versed on program requirements and getting people started. But our staff is consistently available. We have translation available to help answer any questions or point people in the right direction. It's a very simple application. In order to participate, we really will, collect information, contact information, mailing information. What device do you have currently in your house? Is it an open hearth fireplace? Is it a non-certified insert, that type of thing? And then just generally, what type of new device would you be looking to purchase? For residents that have access to natural gas for their house, you can only get a natural gas unit. If you live in an area of the community that maybe doesn't have piped natural gas, there's a couple different options for getting cleaner equipment, and we can certainly walk through those. There's a question, how much do we cover? We cover up to $3,000 for the cost of these new units. For a natural gas device, they cost roughly $3,000, maybe a little bit more. There might be some out-of-pocket expenses, but the grant would cover a significant portion of those new devices. And we established that incentive level so that it could cover the vast majority of those costs, and really encourage the change out of those devices. But it's a very popular program, and we're happy that we can utilize some 617 funding to bring this to the community. Jessica's got her hand up.
I was just going to add, Heather just threw it in the chat, but we are working to customize an outreach, maybe a flyer that we can have you all help distribute to folks. But also, to Brian's point, maybe as a part of that, we can work with you all. Brian mentioned the retailers really are, especially for low-income residents, the best direct contact, although we are also happy to help and certainly open and available to help. And that's because of what Brian mentioned with the the direct voucher type program that can happen for low-income residents, meaning that they won't have to pay ahead of time. So that would be kind of that helpful, maybe extra piece. We can make sure when we reach out to you, it's not just, hey, participate, but hey, participate. Here are the best ways to do that. Step 1, go to this place, or step 2, call us and we can help you, but kind of maybe making it a lot more straightforward.
And there was a question regarding having a list of retailers provided for community members that Linda had. Linda also has her hand up, so go ahead and unmute and ask your question.
Jessica pretty much answered it, but I just wanted to make sure that we could have a flyer type or something maybe on the website that we could help promote to get all that great information out to residents, especially with the retailers. Do you know where the retailers are located? Is it in Bakersfield, or would there be any available in Shafter? Or
so primarily they're in Bakersfield for your particular area. I'm not aware that there's any of these retailers that actually exist in Shafter, but if there are hearth retailers who are selling these type of devices, any retailer that's doing this can join up. But normally what we've seen throughout the valley is that they're primarily located in Fresno, Bakersfield, Stockton, a few in Modesto, but these type of businesses don't necessarily exist in kind of the smaller communities throughout the valley.
okay, and do you know how long from when a resident would say go into a retailer to them actually getting the unit? Do you think, can they get it this winter, I guess is my question?
Yeah, so it really kind of depends. Obviously everybody's dealing with supply chain issues right now. What we've heard from a number of our retailers is that they've stocked up and they have inventory. But depending on the type of device you might be looking for, if they have to order something, it could be several months. So probably anywhere from a few weeks to several months, depending on what somebody's looking for.
Okay, I just wanted also to let everybody know that Heather did put the lists, the link to the list in the chat. So if anybody needs the list of the retailers, it is in the chat now. And then there is also a question from Annabelle. Can you also include vendors that give free estimates?
Yeah, so our retailers are, you know, they've been with us for a long time. And if you're kind of a program participant and go in and talk to them, they'll work with you as much as possible to kind of get you the information and that you might need in order to kind of make this happen. I think a lot of it, you know, is working with the retailer to find that right device that's going to work in the space that you may have available. So I would encourage you, if you're interested, you can again connect with us. A number of our retailers are Spanish speaking, they're bilingual or have bilingual staff, and they would be a great resource for kind of participating and taking that next step to see if that's something that's really going to work well for you.
To that point, Brian, it's not something that to clarify, it's not something, there's not an estimate fee, right? They can go and have this conversation. There should be no money exchange. This is a conversation with a retailer. You should be able to inquire, look at your devices, have the whole interaction without any money out of pocket. So they should all be free estimates. The other thing we'll provide when we get you sort of honed down flyer information, we've done the calling on the list that I put in the chat, and we can identify all the ones that speak Spanish and can receive Spanish customers simply.
Yep, thanks. Thanks for that, Heather. Those are really good points. The next one, unless there are more questions about Burn Cleaner specifically, I'm happy to spend as much time on that one because I think it is a great program, and this just happened within the last several days. So a lot of the questions that you've been asking, we're working on putting the information out there so that we can get people to participate and inform them of the options that are out there. But the next one I wanted to talk about is the urban greening program that there's been questions on. A couple of things that are going on with that. We're finalizing an RFP that we would put out there to select vendors to help facilitate this process and identify locations that would work well for vegetative barriers and come up with options for urban greening development. The other big thing that we're working on right now in relation to those measures that we've heard from the community, and we're trying to incorporate this feedback and ultimately get CARB's approval to do this. But we want to include funding for ongoing maintenance of this equipment or of these trees and ensure that they can have long and healthy lives. And so we're getting that additional funding built into the program and needing CARB's approval on some of that. So we're working with CARB on that. And we should have an RFP for the community to take a look at in the very near future. I would hope kind of by the next meeting in December, we've got that kind of out there as a draft for any input, so that we can start working on you know, getting the RFP out there, selecting vendors, and kind of moving forward with this the implementation of this measure. But there's quite a bit going on there. Looks like Linda's got a hand up for a question.
Maybe if I could send you an email, but I think that the city, and we might need to loop them in on this, will be taking out some really nice, big, healthy trees. And if there was a way that we could save them and put that in the RFP. I know that in the past, there was a tree planting that happened over at Veterans Park with smaller trees, and the trees were stolen. So I was just wondering if some of these city trees that are good, healthy trees could be, you know, in the RFP, if it could just, they could be moved instead of having to purchase a $10,000 tree, or I don't know how much a tree costs that looks that great. If we could just pay the moving fee of it, so we could have some nice, good trees over at Veterans Park.
Yeah, I think somebody did pose that question. We were going to take a look at it. I think there's a number of factors to see there. I think for these urban greening and vegetative barrier projects, there's very specific requirements that we have to follow in terms of the types of trees that we're funding, and then they need to have these kind of
Okay.
additional like overall benefits more so than just being a tree. So depending on what those trees are, depending on what those expenses are, it's probably outside of the framework that we're currently operating under, but I think it's a good question, Linda. And I mean, you'd hate to see those trees just kind of
Yeah,
go to
there-
waste. So hopefully there would be some sort of way to be able to still utilize those, but can't say for certain that it would be under this particular measure or not.
Okay, so to help out, do you want me to find out what kind of tree they are and send that to you?
If you've got some details that you can send as far as the locations, types of trees,
Okay.
when they're going to be moved, where they're being moved to, any of that information, I think that would be super helpful.
Another question I had, and if this would be the case, if we had maybe some smaller trees that we were going to put, say, at some of the schools, like I had put in the program plan. I know you said you're RFPing it to someone, but to help save with some costs of the planting, could we maybe work with, say Kern Tree or someone where we had volunteers? I know that there's been some other volunteer groups in the county and within Shafter to help with some of the tree planting to keep the cost down so that we could use the money to purchase more trees to help out the community. I just wanted to throw that option out for the RFP. I know that might be
yeah, and I'm kind of hoping that sort of, thought process is built into the responses that we get. I think those Kern Tree and organizations like that have a lot of experience with this, and I'm guessing that those types of activities are somewhat built into their plans or expectations for how some of this is going to work. So if assuming that they are going to respond to the RFP and submit a proposal, I would hope that some of that is built in, or if it's not and it does end up happening, and so the administrative costs are less than expected throughout the term of the project, that money could be shifted from sort of the admin bucket to the planting trees bucket.
okay. Thank you so much.
Okay, do we have any more questions on urban greening? I believe there's one in the chat. Oh, there's comments from Melissa. And I work with CAL FIRE, and we are very careful to plant drought-tolerant trees as well as trees that take in a lot of carbon. I have vast experience doing this and calculation carbons. Thank you for that comment, Melissa. And then Brian, we did have a question come in about the previous item. And I just wanted to see if the CSC has any questions about urban greening before we go back to answer the question from the previous item. Okay, I don't see any hands for this one. I believe this came in after we had moved on. The ladies are asking if it also includes stoves that are gas powered to change for an electric stove.
So that would be sort of outside the scope of the program. It's really focused on those wood burning or pellet burning devices that are not certified. You can take one of those types of devices and have like an electric heat pump or something like that installed in your house. But we would not have funding to just take an existing natural gas heater and replace it with an electric heater.
Okay, thank you. And they have their hand up, so go ahead and unmute. Annabelle?
Sí, mi pregunta es, ¿tienen en mente la zona verde como las orillas de los plantíos de los rancheros? Porque están hablando de árboles, pero si ustedes pasan por la carretera, cuando están sacudiendo los árboles o cuando hay neblina, no puedes caminar, no puedes ver al carro de enfrente. Entonces, ¿se está tomando en cuenta las bardas verdes afuera de los rancheros, a la orilla de los rancheros? Porque los árboles pues es arriba, pero la tierra viene abajo, viene el polvo, te levanta, cuando sacude los pistachos viene abajo. Y ahí es como han tenido mucho las personas fiebre del valle, o sea, respiramos todo ese polvo. Esa es mi pregunta. Porque un árbol es arriba, la copa verde, pero a la orilla si ustedes vienen por toda Lerdo, toda la orilla esa, cuando están sacudiendo los pistachos y las almendras, los tractores o los recolectores echan toda la tierra para la carretera.
Yes, my question is about those green areas that you're talking about. Are you talking about just trees, or are you talking about also the sites from where the ranchers are shaking the pistachios and things like that? Because when you're driving in your car and there's a lot of fog, you barely can see anything. And when you're talking about trees, you're talking only about the part on top. But what about the part that goes from the bottom? Because when they're shaking the pistachios and the almonds, the dust comes from down there all the way up. So that's my question. When you're talking about trees, is just trees on top, or are you talking about the sides? Because we are inhaling all that dust when they're shaking all the almonds and all the pistachios.
Yeah, and that's a really good question and a good point of clarification. These vegetative barriers can be a number of different types of plants, if you will. So it could be some sort of bush, a bush, a shrub-like tree that would help prevent dust or other emissions from leaving a certain area and impacting other parts of the community or a roadway or something along those lines. They're in the RFP that we have that's going to go out, it'll kind of lay out some of the parameters of what types of plants or trees or shrubs would be appropriate for different locations. And what we're hoping is that the entities that respond to this RFP for some of the vegetative barrier work have experience doing this and can identify locations and types of plants that would be most suitable for preventing emissions from escaping and identifying where some of that stuff should go. And that's an entire collaborative effort there. But really quickly, it is more than just trees.
To clarify, for the shafter, we don't have actually, we will only be doing an RFP, I believe, for urban greening. We don't have funding allocated to vegetative barriers in the SERP. And I think we've talked about this in the past, and I don't know if this is maybe a discussion we have, maybe it actually relates to a discussion I maybe want to have in a minute here about some other opportunities, but we actually don't have, right now in the SERP, it says identify sources of funding. So we are looking to identify our, we have the 50,000 without the match, if you recall, for urban greening, that we will release an RFP for. But for vegetative barriers, right now we have an RFP ready to go for Fresno. They allocated funding in their SERP, but right now in Shafter, it doesn't have that. But that, again, maybe can be a piece of discussion at a future meeting.
And I definitely apologize for that confusion.
No, it's okay. I was double checking while you were talking, and that's why I sort of jumped in there. But everything Brian said is correct. For when and if we do want to fund vegetative barriers, and again, I'll kind of explain what I mean by that in a minute here.
Yeah, and so the urban greening measure would really be designed to plant, trees and other similar types of, shrubs and bushes that would provide air quality benefits and beautify the area in Shafter there.
Melissa, if I can, sorry, I know you have a lot to input on this, so maybe typically we do public comments at the end, although I feel like you have a lot of great input on urban greening and vegetative barriers, because I think it sounds like that's your wheelhouse. So maybe I'll defer to Jessica to make sure that there's no other like CSC comment on this. And then since we're on the topic, I think that makes sense to me.
There is a comment, again, from Anabel Marquez group. Our understanding was to have for green barriers for industry to just have a tree around the city. And if you want to unmute to clarify your question, or if it was just fine the way I read it, please let us know.
No, es que cuando se inició el SERP, era para prevenir esta fuente de contaminación, esas barreras, para prevenir el polvo que venga adentro de la comunidad. Ahorita, como lo estamos entendiendo aquí entre todas, es que es para enverdecer la comunidad y
Ya no queremos enverdecerla.
no es enverdecerla, sino prevenir estas fuentes de emisiones.
No, it's because when the SERP was started, it was these measures were being taken to protect the community. And the way that we're hearing it in this meeting is to make this city more green. And we don't need the city to be more green. We need protective measures.
Yes, so I think what I'm hearing, and I hear you, and this is what's in the SERP right now, but what I was about to say, and I think what we're getting at, is that there isn't funding, and this is what's been in the adopted SERP. We've been talking for a while about urban greening, which is planting in and around the community, certainly a measure that was asked, but vegetative barriers is the one that's health protective. And what I was going to mention, and maybe this is a good time to talk about it, there are a couple of measures. This might be one of them, as well as maybe lawn and garden, since we just had an event and we found out that it was a really popular type of measure, where maybe there are opportunities to move funding if needed or if desired, and if it makes sense based on community partners into a measure that maybe doesn't have enough based on our priorities. And so my thought was that it sounds like, you know, without going into details today, but maybe agendizing it, vegetative barriers might be one of those. And since we do already have an approved plan from CARB that we're working with them on some minor changes, this can maybe be something that we do work with the community to maybe shift funding from something that's maybe you know, lower priority, or that we don't think we'll spend in time, to something that's higher priority, like, again, maybe adding more lawn and garden equipment or even funding vegetative barriers.
Annabelle Marquez Group, you have your hand up. Go ahead and unmute.
Sí, mira, cuando nosotros comenzamos con esto, les dijimos lo que queríamos. Ahora, las industrias, ellas nunca supieron lo que nosotros estábamos haciendo por la ciudad. Ustedes primero fueron con las industrias. Y a nosotros nos dicen que los fondos, que no se puede hacer esto, que no se puede hacer otro. Ya no queremos más, no. Queremos que se hagan las cosas como nosotros se las pedimos. La ciudad, en primer lugar, ella no le va a dar mantenimiento a los árboles. Ella dijo que no le da mantenimiento a los árboles. Yo tengo 2 árboles fuera de mi casa y yo me tengo que encargar de esos árboles. Regarlos y podarlos. El problema de nosotros es las carreteras con tanto polvo. No queremos belleza porque en sí Chaffer no está bien instruido, no está bien distribuido como para poner una ciudad bonita con árboles. Si no tenemos luz mercurial por toda la Lerdo, imagínate que los árboles van a oscurecer más la calle. El bulevar se va a poner más oscuro con más árboles. Más delincuencia. Y más delincuencia. Nosotros queremos vallas verdes a la orilla de todos los rancheros. ¿Por qué si a los rancheros se les dio tanta cantidad de dinero? Que ellos tienen dinero, nosotros no tenemos dinero, nosotros no tenemos palabra ni nada, porque ustedes distribuyen el dinero como ustedes quieren o agarran lo que ustedes quieren para las industrias, y eso no se me hace justo. Por 200 máquinas de cortar zacate nos están diciendo que ya se va a acabar la contaminación, pero los pesticidas y el petróleo y todo lo que es, ¿dónde van a encerrar todo ese petróleo, todo ese humo de petróleo? ¿Dónde van a encerrar toda esa polución de tantos químicos de los rancheros?
Yo los invito cuando están recogiendo la almendra, que todos vinieran a mirar cuando la almendra se recoge. No se puede realmente manejar de las casas, uno no puede salir para afuera
No se
porque
ve.
está completamente llena.
Señoras, sí me dan un segundo nada más para interpretar todo lo que han dicho y luego seguimos, ¿ok? Yes. So when we started this, we told you that we wanted what we wanted from the industry, and you knew, or we wanted for you to put the city first. And you tell us that there's just not enough funds and that we can't do this and that we can't do the other thing. We don't want to keep hearing no. We want you to pay for things that we have asked for in the city in the first place. The city will not maintain the trees. They have said it that they do not maintain the trees. I have trees outside of my home and I need to take care of those trees. The problems that we have is that the streets are filled with so much dust. We don't want to make Shafter beautiful. We just want to have these trees that are, and if you can imagine that having more of these trees on those sides would just make the streets more dark. And what's going to happen when it's darker? More delinquency. We want protective barriers at the edges where all the farmers are because they have money. We don't have money, and we don't have anything because you distribute all the money as you would like and you give it to the industry and not to us. And you think that with 200 lawnmowers that you're replacing, that you're going to end the contamination. No, there's still going to be oil and gas emissions and pesticides. Where is all of that going to stop? And then the other lady next to her mentioned how it is that she invites you to go when they are shaking down all the almonds and see all the dust that is created, that you can't even go outside of your home and drive around.
Thank you.
Okay, pueden seguir, señoras. I'm not sure if they have more comments.
No, lo único que queremos es eso, que se nos tome en cuenta lo que nosotros pedimos y queremos. Si no se van a hacer las cosas así, nosotros vamos a tomar otra opción. No nos hagan desilusionarnos más de lo que ya estamos.
No nos den árboles porque árboles no queremos.
No, ¿para qué queremos un árbol de $10,000 si es tan poquito el dinero que están dando a la comunidad? Compara el dinero de la comunidad con el que les dieron a los rancheros. ¿Cuánto les dieron a los rancheros? ¿Me puedes decir, por favor? Es una pregunta.
We want you to take us into account, and we ask that things be done, or to do things as we ask them to be done. And if not, we're going to take in another option. Please don't keep giving us false promises. And we don't want trees. Why would we want a tree that's $10,000 when you're not giving any money into the community? I ask, how much money was given to the ranchers, to the industry? Please answer me that question.
All right, thank you so much for your comments. And I have a couple of answers, hopefully. And then I think Dr. Ramos put a great point in the chat that we think we can agendize a couple, maybe this topic for the next meeting to answer some of the questions. And so I'll start a little bit from a lot of what Annabelle said is hopeful, what we thought was reflected in the SERP. So I think one thing is that everything that we're talking about with spending and allocations has been in the SERP since the beginning. So we're not talking about spending money any differently than we've been tracking month to month in our discussions with you all. Your point about industry and vegetative barriers, I believe is what is reflected initially in the SERP. To your point, I believe the community didn't want us to pay for people in the industry to put up vegetative barriers. I, as a community, felt like they should identify that funding for themselves, which is actually why I believe at this point we say identify funding sources and work with project partners as opposed to using the funds in the community for this. Also, urban greening, actually, it's very new to the district. It's not something that we proposed. It was something that was proposed by committee members as a part of it. And we hear you on the maintenance. We actually, Brian just mentioned, you probably heard that we are working with CARB to make sure that the funding that is for that measure that we've been updating all of you on really the past year will include maintenance so that there is no excuse for an unmaintained tree. It will actually be a requirement, whether it's the city that we use to plant the trees or it's some other, maybe it's a school district and we plant the trees there. So that will be part of that. Finally, one of the, I wrote down funding, sorry, I'm trying to remember, there were lots of great questions. The question I think about is incentives and all of the dust maybe from all of the almond harvesting. We hear you, and we actually heard this committee. That was the #1 priority as we were developing the SERP and throughout implementation. So the very first Shafter SERP measure we took to CARB to get the project plan approved was the low dust almond harvesters, because at this point, in addition to maybe future vegetative barriers, the best way to make sure that that dust doesn't get into the community is to make them use better equipment. And at this point, the only way that happens is that they buy new equipment. And so that's why there is incentives you saw for the 25 low dust harvesters, and they cost more than a lawnmower. So we committed to 10 times as many lawnmowers, 250 lawnmowers for the community. But we also agree, and I think what we heard yesterday, even at our event, maybe there's interest in more. And that was sort of the thought, was that it sounds like you are interested in maybe doing more lawnmowers. Maybe we have another event in the spring and we allocate more funding from something else in the SERP. It's not a matter of lack of funding. It's a matter of the SERP has a set amount at this point. But to your point, maybe the community is more interested in lawnmowers than they are maybe in some of the other measures. And so we can work, I think, to Dr. Ramos's point, at a future meeting to agendize this and talk about maybe we do have more funding for lawn and garden for those resident measures. But as it stands right now, we're trying to get the reductions from the heaviest polluting sources, as you mentioned. And so that's why there's more emissions reduction funding or incentives in those measures. But we hear you. We also thought yesterday was clear that there are a lot of people interested in something like lawnmowers, but we also agree lawnmowers are not going to clean the air. We need those low dust harvesters. We need people to not burn agricultural material and to chip it instead. Those are the types of things we're still funding as a part of the SERP commitment to you all. So it's a balance between some of the things that maybe aren't as impactful from the emission side, but maybe help the community out, as well as getting emissions reductions from those that maybe pollute the most. And that's what's been outlined in the SERP since the beginning. We haven't changed any of that funding. We've been implementing it the same way that it's been in the SERP since the beginning.
Thank you for that. And then the Annabelle Marcus group, thank you so much for speaking up on this and being the voice for your community, because as CSC members, that is exactly what you are, is the voice for your community. So thank you so much for speaking up. And I just want to do a quick time check. It is now 6:17 and our measure tracker was supposed to go to 6:15. So Jessica, please let me know if you would like to finish that measure tracker.
The only thing maybe we just, and we've touched on it a couple times, but just to close the loop on the lawn and garden event, I thought it was a great event yesterday, a lot of fun, great to see some residents there in Shafter. We did 150 lawnmowers. That gets us a good chunk into the measure that we were going to do. We still have funding under this measure. So there were some residents that I talked to yesterday that were very interested in getting their lawnmower replaced, but didn't do it yesterday. They can still go out and purchase an electric lawnmower and get their old lawnmower to the dismantler and submit their rebate application to us. So there are still opportunities to participate in the Clean Green Yard Machine program. And as Jessica mentioned earlier, we're going to be looking for discussions on whether or not we should do something like this again, and maybe we should put more money into this particular measure. So I thought there was a lot of positivity associated with that event yesterday, and I think we definitely want to continue that momentum. And that's pretty much it, unless there was any other questions for me, but definitely appreciate all the feedback.
I see a thumbs up for you. Are there any questions on this part of the item, which was the lawn and garden item from the CSC members? Okay, I don't see anything. So, oh, I do see a hand. Go ahead and unmute Michelle.
I just wanted to say I swung by yesterday and it was a great event. I think that, you know, we as people, we are very distrustful that sometimes it couldn't be that good or work that good. And it did. It worked really well and it was very streamlined. It was fun. There was music and so you know, you get those flyers and you say, oh, that's not really true. So I'm glad that we can make everybody believe in it. And I think that's a great thing, and moving forward is a great thing. And you guys did a good job.
Thank you, Michelle.
Angie, go ahead and unmute.
I'd also like to say that I stopped by the lawnmower event yesterday and went and got my lawnmower replaced, and it was a good event. We were actually in line early and they had already started, and they had got rid of the little glitch in traffic already because it was getting a little backed up, but they got that taken care of. I didn't get to say hi to you guys, but I did see Jamie dancing along to the music, getting flyers ready to hand out. So it was good. The committee did a great job with the food and everything. Everything was quick. It was well received.
Thanks, Angie. Glad you had a positive experience.
Angie, did you raise your hand again?
No, I was trying to put it down, but I guess it didn't.
Oh, okay. All right. Any other questions on this particular item? I'll give it a few seconds. Okay, it seems we don't have anything more. Thank you so much for that presentation, Brian, and for addressing all of the CSC's questions. Next, we are moving on to standing updates. So first we have Min with DPR.
Hey, good evening, everybody. I think probably the biggest things that were recently occurring with DPR, there was back in October 19th, there was a 1,3-dichloropropene or T-loan risk management directive that was issued. With that, the risk management directive established a acute regulatory target for us. It's a 55 ppb for non-occupational bystanders. So what that basically means to me and my group is we're going to be working to put together a regulatory package for that. So my team will be working on regulating both acute and cancerous, so both short-term and long-term exposure to non-occupied bystanders. And this replaces the current memo of understanding that we currently have with Dow regarding the 1,3-D township. Also, with all the studies that we've currently been doing with the pilot project, a lot of the results from that will help influence and drive the work that we're doing with this rulemaking package as well. And let me go ahead and do this. Let me drop the information for where you can find the actual risk management document. And if you have questions that you can actually just, there's an actual inbox dedicated to it. So let me drop this into the chat real quick. Yes, work, yes. So that website and that inbox there, you can get the direct information from. As far as kind of going into what's related to this community specifically, we talked about last year how we had a edge of field study that we conducted towards the end of the year. And what's this? This is in May, we had conducted a second one there in Shafter as well. So this one, the preliminary information that came out from this has also been very promising. We're actually looking at results that are, let me pull the numbers for you guys specifically, about 36% peak lower emissions and 61, sorry, 36% compared to like a normal application that's done, and 61% in comparison to TIF-TARP. I'll have more information on that as we kind of finalize these studies, and we'll also be talking a little bit more, but I'll have presentations and PowerPoints that I'll give the next go around for that as well as I kind of wrap this up. One other thing is towards the end of this month, we're going to try to get out to Shafter one more time to do another field study. Given that we can get everything lined up with weather and just resources, it's literally going to be the last week of November. So we're able to hit that, then we'll be back on the field through the middle of December doing another study out there. What else is happening? Notification. I know last week there was a couple of public hearings where input was taken in from all stakeholders. So all that is going to go into this notification system. So they're doing that. They're also tentatively placing new workshops and new webinars. So be on the lookout on that webpage. That webpage will give you the most recent information on what's going to happen and when it'll be occurring. So I think there's a couple more meetings that they have set up. That's basically it for our standing updates right now. So I can take questions an hour later.
Annabelle, Marcus.
Estás diciendo sobre el proyecto piloto que va a ser en noviembre, pero ¿cuándo van a dar los resultados para atrás? ¿Qué tanto va a ser para que nos dé la información para atrás? Y si va a ser mucha comparación, porque yo sé que la medicación que está pasando el 1,3-D, le están haciendo las pruebas durante el año, pero se concentra más en el tiempo de invierno. So, quería saber si van a hacer uno más para adelante, porque cuando han habido las elevaciones altas, viene siendo como en diciembre a enero. Y quería saber si van a hacer otra prueba en esos meses. Otra pregunta que tenía es sobre la notificación. Están hablando, el Departamento de Pesticidas, están hablando de la notificación estatal. Pero ¿qué es lo que está pasando para aquí localmente de Shafter? Aquí está el fondo específicamente y estoy mirando que ahí está el Glen, porque se ha hecho mucha abogacía para que se haga aquí localmente y a la fecha no se ha hecho nada, y eso está alarmante, porque antes de estar hablando del Estado, enfóquese de lo que está aquí. Hay dinero aquí ya listo para hacer el proceso de notificación, y todavía no se ha hecho nada del Departamento de Regulación de Pesticidas. Necesitamos que estén en el mismo apoyo para poner a Glenn a trabajar como está la notificación que tiene ahorita al momento. Esa es una pregunta y un comentario a la vez.
I know you're talking about the pilot project in November, but when will we get the results back? And will there be a lot of comparison? Because I know that 1,3-D mitigation is going on throughout the year and we're more focused in the winter. So I want to see if they will do another one, because the biggest elevations are normally from November to January. And also DPR is talking a lot about statewide notification, but here in Shafter, what is being done? I know that there's been a lot of advocacy and a lot of fighting with Glenn, and that's also alarming, because before we're talking about the state, talk about what's going on here. There's money here, but there has not been anything done, and we need that same support in order to make Glenn work on the notification that he already has.
Okay, so good question on the 1,3-D pilot. So the 1,3-D pilot project was a year-long endeavor. So what we're envisioning is all of that coming together. We'll actually be providing data to our, the pesticide registration evaluation community and our various other scientific communities that we're going to be giving that update for. Similar to the last time that I produced results for you guys, that's how I envisioned doing this as well. For the last go around in Shafter, which was in May, I'll also have comparisons. So that's what we had last time. We had the comparison to a traditional, what we call it an 18-inch broadcast, which is typically what's used out there during that time frame. So we'll have that, and then we'll also have the comparison to TIF tarping, which was the ask from the community of the method, the preferred method that you would like to get to. So you could see, these new methods that we had produced, how close they would get, or, in this case, it's actually exceeding some of our expectations as far as getting comparable emissions reductions to that of TIF tarping. And then it'll also show you, the reductions from a typical application. As far as, so I guess I'm not really following the question on the application schedule. We can only do application studies during the time of application, and all those have been focused around the spring and the fall, which is typically what we see within the state and specifically within Shafter. The 3 that we've scheduled within Shafter, that's why we targeted that end of November timeline. We know that that's usually the rush when everybody tries to get in before the December prohibition. So that's usually why we're out there that last week of November. The May one is also comparable to normal timeframes, that just towards the end of spring, when water is available. That's the biggest limitation to a lot of the growers out there is water. So after a rain or something like that, it's typically when these happen. So all these, along with the couple of other studies that we have throughout the state, will be within that timeline of when applications typically happen. So it's not, we're not doing anything that's outside of a window that isn't typically what you would see in your community. As far as the notification question, I personally don't work on the local notification, so I don't really know much to say about that, unfortunately. I know that within the program and the department, I know there's conversations being had about what that could look like, and I know they're trying to solicit more input on that. And I think although the meetings that we've been having are for statewide notification, a lot of the focus in there are driven by residents in various communities and their ask and their input and their needs. So, I mean, whether it be in this forum or that forum, I would just encourage everybody to, put your voices into those meetings, webinars, or whatnot, just so they can hear it. And then from there, the department can make a decision and, work with Glenn and his group to do what needs to be done. And unfortunately, I don't know what the communication is with that right now.
I will say, just from a high level, we did send out the DPR notice for those workshops that mentioned to this group. So hopefully you all received that for the workshops that happened last week.
Okay, thank you for that update, Min. And next we have CARB. Go ahead, Scott.
Actually, I put it in the chat a little while ago, but we don't really have any updates this month. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, and next we have Chai with air monitoring.
All right, good evening, everyone. So as you all already know, we have one location left, which is at Mexican Colony, and still no movement from Kern County at this point in terms of moving forward with putting the electrical infrastructure. So we're still having difficulty with that, and just wanted to bring it back to the committee to see if I know that's a very important area that we want to get some monitoring done, and so see if you know of anybody that may live within that area that might have some potential locations that we can work with to install an air monitor. I know there's certain areas in there that are just like empty lots also, but we really don't have contact to those individuals. So if you know of anybody, please let me know, and I'll go ahead and put my my contact information again here in the chat here. I know Gustavo had looked a few weeks ago, and we still really didn't, we weren't able to really find anybody. But again, if you know of anybody with any potential locations in there, please let me know while we're waiting for Kern County to get their process approved to install the electrical infrastructure in that area.
Thank you, Chai. Any questions or comments for Chai? We'll give it a few seconds in case the Annabelle Marcus group needs a little extra time.
Chai, I kind of previewed it earlier, but if they don't have questions on what you just updated, can you walk just really quickly through the interactive map? Did we talk about that? I don't think it was up at the last chapter meeting.
You're muted, Chai.
Muted.
Oops, sorry. Yeah, I'm not sure. I can't recall if we did, but I can definitely walk over that one for us. So in order to get there, we go to our main page, AB 617 monitoring. Go to Shafter. And then what we've updated is the map will appear right as you get onto it. And it includes the community monitor and regulatory monitor. As you zoom out, you'll be able to see other locations. So in here, when you click on it, it'll get to this point here, and you can get to the more info here. And once you click onto that, that'll take you to the chart, and then you can run through whether you're looking at PM10, PM25, and then depending on the dates, if you want to go back in time and take a look at the chart for those dates as well. And if you're looking at multiple locations, so what it does is actually opens a new tab or new page. So you can just close this and it'll take you right back. And then you can go to the next one and click on that. It opens up a new page. So that way you can kind of go through it and get various ideas of the pollution levels for each of these pollutants.
Thanks, Chai. I just wanted to make sure we didn't miss that opportunity.
No, thank
awesome.
you.
Thanks.
All right, any questions about what Chai just put up on the screen or clarifications? Okay, I am not seeing anything. So are there any other agency updates?
I'll just let you all know, Mike James from the city said he couldn't make it tonight, but we will coordinate with some of our action items from the last couple of meetings with him and hopefully provide an update at the next meeting.
Thank you. Okay, so with that, we will move on. Oh, question from Gus. Go ahead, unmute.
Actually, never mind. I don't think this is off topic to what was just presented. I could wait.
Okay. So we were going to move to wrap up and next steps. So let me put this up. Let me share my screen. Get to the rights. The next meeting, the agenda setting meeting will be at 3 p.m. Monday, November 15th via Zoom, and the Air District sends that out. And the next CSC meeting is 5 p.m. Monday, December 13th via Zoom. Go ahead, Jess.
This is something, it's totally something we wanted to bring to the committee, but a couple of things. One is that we have several action items, especially today, that are probably things by January will have a lot of great next steps, and there's a lot of implementation to be done in between. And there's a lot going on in December. We know it's the holidays, and it's sort of, I don't know if people are traveling yet because of COVID, but this is just a thought and a proposal that we have our next meeting be in January. it's totally up to you all. We have several action items we need to complete. We will still do our December send out of all of the tracking materials, and we will send all of you a hard copy of all of the updated finalized annual report, as well as some of the main action items we discussed today. We will also have an opportunity during I'm seeing a couple thumbs up. We'll have an opportunity. We will still have our agenda setting meeting next week, which will really help us outline like our big action items in January. I heard a lot about maybe moving, adjusting some funding and addressing some concerns and questions about big measures that just between now and that meeting in December with the holidays might be difficult for us to have action items by then. Definitely up to the committee. I don't know if we can do sort of an informal poll, but maybe we can follow up with like a sort of a doodle, like quick survey monkey, yes, no, and do it that way as well. But totally up to you. We can also still have one. It's just a kind of a thought.
Gus has his hand raised. Go ahead, Gus.
Yeah. I like the idea of like whether or not we have a Zoom meeting in December, that something regardless is sent out via like the tracker. And then also I want to make sure that, and I'm sure it was, but I kind of was hopping on and off because I was helping my kid out with homework. The discussion that Annabelle and others were having about the trees and whatnot, I want to make sure that it's also like capture that part of it is like the vegetative barriers that actually create a barrier between sources and potential cross-contamination, right? So like, I just want to make sure that that was captured in that format.
Yeah, and I think what we can do is highlight during some of those the notes that I know that Harder just took, and I think they'll share with us in a second. We can go over that in the agenda setting meeting, capturing that. I 100% agree. We will send out the materials still in hard copy. What I think we'll do is we'll send everyone a hard copy in English and Spanish, whichever is preferred, of the final annual report, and that way people can have that. And then to Gustavo's point, making sure we captured the intent and the really a lot of the great feedback we heard about vegetative barriers in particular, and sort of the need for and why kind of what they would actually do, so we can set ourselves up for the next discussion in January.
So just to clarify, would you like us to create a poll and let them vote? The CSC?
Maybe if it's sort of, can we do like if there are no objections, we can tentatively, like we can call it good, and then maybe sort of go to our agenda setting meeting to finalize it with everyone, and we'll send out an announcement if that works for everyone.
Okay, I just want to give anybody who has an objection a chance to object. Okay, not seeing any hands, or I don't see anybody unmuting. Okay, so okay, so I would like to at this time give Gus a chance to speak. Go ahead.
I'm so sorry. Just to be very clear, our next Zoom meeting will be in January 2022.
Correct.
And then the Air District will regardless send out maybe around this time something in the regards of an update.
Yes, the tracker will be updated. We will make sure it's clear in the tracker. Maybe we can do some clarifying, and even maybe that visual tracker can be appended to it. So there will still, as if we were having a meeting, you will definitely have all of the materials with you.
Got it. Cool. There was something else. I can't think of it now, but I'll type it in the chat.
Okay, thank you, Gus. We'll watch the chat for your comments. So we actually do have an objection by the Annabelle Marcus group. They are saying, no, we need a meeting in December. And I just want to make sure that I'm understanding that correct. Is that correct? Annabelle Marcus group. Okay. You can unmute just to confirm that you're objecting. Okay. I think they're having actually connection issues.
Connection issues, okay.
Yeah, sorry.
I wonder
remembered
what
I
we
read
can
that.
do. We'll talk on our end. We'll contact a few of you. What we can maybe do is also, we can send out like a survey monkey or a doodle poll just so we can get firm clarification. So we have like a majority and an actual count, since we couldn't reach consensus, which makes sense. And if folks still want to have a meeting, we're definitely open. We just want you to know that a lot of the action items today, it will probably be January makes more sense for a lot of them. A lot of them are a lot of coordination. And we still, again, we'll always have the updates. We will send them directly to all of you. So we will still, there will be no skipping in terms of what updates we have for everyone. You will get those in the mail and we will post them. It would just be the actual connection and the meeting. Because again, there's Thanksgiving holiday. It's between Thanksgiving and Christmas, and it's sort of close to the Christmas holidays, to give you all a little bit of a break.
Okay, so just to clarify, Annabelle Marcus group, it is pending depending on the majority. And so it sounds like the Air District is going to send out some kind of poll to kind of poll everyone. And so before we go on to the action items, our team has been taking action. Go ahead.
Quería agregar que las personas que están aquí están votando que sí se haga la junta en diciembre porque hay muchos artículos que se tienen que mandar y no darles más tiempo al Distrito del Aire. Se necesita hacer la acción ya y no tomar más tiempo.
I just wanted to add that the people that is here with me voting on yes, that they want to have the meeting in December because we have a lot of action items that we have to send and we don't wish to give more time to the Air District because we have to do it now.
Maybe I'm unclear on what action items we're, other than the big discussion that we want to have that we make sure a lot of people are present for about urban greening and vegetative barriers. Maybe I'm unclear, and but I think to Jessica's summary, we will send out, and maybe that can be part of the feedback that we solicit from folks as to kind of, and maybe of course we always have our agenda setting meeting next week and we can talk about what those action items would be and how that would be appropriate for the December meeting if we have one.
Thank you, Jessica. Okay, thank you everyone who commented on the December meeting. Before our team, oh, go ahead, Gus.
Sorry, last comment. The annual report, when is that already finalized and sent to CARB?
No, but actually, thank you, Gustavo. That is one thing I failed to mention. We are going to take these reports as updates to our board, and we will post that on Friday. So if there's any sort of like lingering questions or comments, the sooner you get it to us, the better, of course, for that piece, and then we will forward that to CARB. Although CARB has been, and I'm sure they could tell you, they've been looking at the draft reports the whole time. And I don't know, and maybe Scott can answer this question. I don't actually think, is there a formal, there's not like a formal, this goes to the CARB board, is there? Or is that, am I mistaken?
Yeah, there hasn't historically been a board hearing or meeting on the annual reports. They typically just get transmitted to the board members with a little bit of a cover memo and typically a summary for them.
Okay. I think just like out of courtesy and like inclusion and equity, once that's sent out, if you can include like the entire CSC, like blind copy us, right? Just to like acknowledge that, you know, that has been sent out. And
yeah, I think that's a great idea. We can certainly do that. We'll BCC the usual list we do, and that way you see the transmission to CARB. I think that makes sense. Awesome.
Okay, perfect. So I would like just to remind everyone again that our agenda setting meeting is going to be held on Monday, and we really encourage people to participate, to come and join and give their ideas, because basically that's what sets us up for this meeting. So if you're not there, it's hard to capture what you'd really like to see on the agenda. And then the air district doesn't know what you want to see. And so it's a little challenging sometimes to kind of see both sides. So please try to make it. If I don't know if the air district is open, especially for the Spanish speaking ladies, if the air district would be open to like holding it in Spanish and then doing the interpretation. But we really do want to include everyone and also volunteers for the community co-hosts. We'd love to work with the community to co-host these meetings. Again, they are your meetings, and we want you to participate and speak to your peers, because you guys are the ones who are kind of leading these measures and working hand in hand with the air district. So support each other. And we're going to be there to support you, the air district and Harder and Company. So if you've never like spoken in public, or you kind of just want to open up the meeting, whatever support you need, we are more than happy to provide that. And I'm going to pass it to Amy now. And she is going to go over the action items that we have for today.
Thank you, Jessica. Let me share my screen, and these will be displayed on the website as they currently are for the last meeting. And so what you see here is the action items that we gathered from today's conversation, and you have the action item in English and in Spanish, and then this will become part of the tracker that gets displayed on the website. So the first action item for today is, as Jessica just mentioned, if someone would like to become a co-host at any future meeting, please contact the Air District and we will be in communication with you to ensure that you know exactly how to get involved. Future reports will include graphic displays for each measure on a monthly basis. And this was in relationship to the tracker and in relationship to ensuring that you can see the changes over time. Shafter residents should inquire with local retailers participating in the Burn Cleaner program, and you can see the list that was provided by the Air District. Under the Burn Cleaner program, all residents will be able to replace old burning devices with a natural gas device. This new option is a healthier option, and there are several retail places that will be using the $3,000 incentive to support the acquisition of new devices. CSCs will revisit the SERP to incorporate vegetative barriers. As you noted, this is a conversation that came up today. It is currently not listed as a pending item, and it will be revisited at a future meeting to ensure that today's conversation gets the time that it deserves so that you can move into more comprehensive action items. The Department of Pesticide Regulation will be conducting another study in November, and we'll have more information at future CSC meetings. As Jessica Olson said, there are a lot of general pending items that will take some time to revisit. If anyone in the Mexican colony would like to install air monitoring equipment, please contact Chai at the Air District to get those installed. And the December 2021 CSC meeting might be canceled. All relevant materials, whether it's canceled or not, will be sent as printed materials to each CSC member. A survey poll will be sent to CSC members to formally vote to cancel that December 2021 meeting.
Hey, Dr. Ramos, on
yeah.
that item 6, I just want that to be clarified so that people don't get confused that we're going to be that we will be installing multiple air monitors. So basically, we have one air monitor to be installed within that area, and we're having difficulty finding a place for it. So we just need one location for it. So yeah, if anyone is to volunteer. Perfect. Thank you.
Yep. Perfect. Thank you. So that's why we read them out loud to make sure we capture them correctly. So if anyone location in the Mexican colony would like to volunteer to allow the Air District to install the air monitoring equipment, please contact the Air District. Sounds very repetitive, but we will work on that grammar. let's see here. And then the last one is once the final annual report is finalized and sent to CARB, all CSC members will be blind copied on the email communication so they know that that report was sent out. So again, as I mentioned previously, this is the new addition to tracking action items. These action items will be posted on your website, and you will be able to track not only the action item itself, but who's responsible, the status, the outcome, and then we'll be revisiting the category associated with the public health concern for each of those items. And I'll pass it back to Jessica.
Thank you, Amy. All right, and now I would like to invite the public to public comments.
We do not have public comment on any of our social channels.
Thank you, Heather. Okay, and I'm also not seeing any hands here. I don't see any public comments in the chat either. Okay, all right, so then I believe that is all for today. Jessica, I saw that you unmuted earlier. Did you want to add something?
No, as she said, Jessica, and it was a reflex, but she was speaking to you. No,
Okay. Okay. I want to thank everybody for participating today. And I see that Gus has his hand up. Go ahead, Gus.
I take it back. This is my last comment. For the potential meeting on December, for anyone that wants to participate, something will be sent out to them to vote on whether yes or no, right? And then there will be a majority vote.
That's the plan right now. Our majority of people who participate, you know, it was sort of a casual thing, and I know we kind of sprung it on you, so I apologize for the last minute.
No, yeah.
But
Okay.
yes, and we'll definitely share with everyone. We'll make sure everyone knows whether or not there's a meeting happening, as well as we'll still have our agenda setting meeting. So no matter what, we will have a community engagement piece to kind of next steps, as well as promised, send everything out, no matter meeting or no meeting, but we will let you all know.
Thank you, Gus. Okay, thank you everyone for participating. I sincerely appreciate everyone's time. All right, we have 4 minutes till 7, so go ahead and enjoy the rest of your evening. Stay safe.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you all. And thanks again, Annabelle, and everyone who helped out yesterday. It was so amazing. I can't thank you enough. Bye. It was good seeing you.